This segment of Naperville Sports Weekly is brought to you in part by the Daily Herald.
Daily Herald sports writer Dave Oberhelman. You cover the UEC. With us, it's mostly the UEC Valley. Neuqua Valley has looked good so far. Nobody really knew what to expect out of them coming into the season, but 4-1, 2-0 in the Valley. They're looking pretty good right now.
Right. Well, they've got a nice. First of all, they've got a nice 1-2 at the running back position with Danny Dudek in support of Joey Radigan. Radigan's kind of they're a little bit different runners. Radigan already has 635 yards, 13 touchdowns. Dudek has over 400 yards rushing, and they've got they kind of have a no-name defense, but it's done pretty well for them so far.
One name on the defense, Michael Ippolito, just committed to Northern Illinois about a week and a half ago, and he's looked pretty good, bringing pressure off the edge for that defense that was probably learning some of the faces here down the stretch.
Right. Well, Ippolito, I shouldn't have said him no name because he's a big name, and a guy who came out of nowhere. Austin Schlosser is leading them at the middle linebacker spot and tackles. I think Ippolito last year had 75 tackles. He's not going to get that total this year because he's just so dominant that teams are going to run the opposite. They're going to run away from that guy.
And we've seen them be quite balanced in the past, but this year a lot of run heavy here in the first 5 weeks of the season.
Right. Well, I guess when you got, they have a couple nice offensive linemen, both juniors, to complement the rest of that line. So they're going to go with that. I think Coach Wells would, unless he's got a superstar quarterback, will always like to run. Nate Boudreau has had some good games, some not so good. I think Coach Wells would like to, or I know that Coach Wells would like to get a little bit more balance out of that quarterback spot.
Well, Bonzi Valley, I think, was the favorite coming in, or one of the favorites, along with Bartlett, who they shared the Valley title with last year. You look at them, their defense, you want to talk about a monstrous defense. These guys have gotten after the quarterback, and they forced a lot of turnovers.
Right, and they were pretty close. I know the Bartlett game was, Bartlett came out and scored 27 unanswered. When the quarterback went down, Mitch Stefani with the broken collarbone, the backup Dylan Warden came in, scored 3 touchdowns himself to kind of, close that gap. They still lost that game, but as you said, the defense is really taking care of things. They've got over the past 2 games, they've recovered 9 fumbles, gotten 2 interceptions. Hugh Griffin, outside linebacker himself, has returned 2 fumbles for touchdowns. And he's just a sophomore.
Yeah, they've been busy for sure. And you talk about that offense, Dylan Warden, the guy that's come in as the backup after Stefani went down, and the Warriors have almost reinvented themselves here on the offensive end in the last couple weeks.
Right. Well, as you mentioned off the air, they weren't running the option too much. Warden's a flashier, more athletic player than Mitch Stefani was. So far he's able to make those reads and either pitch it back to Austin Guido or keep it himself. And he looks really good.
And the other Valley team we have, Mattia Valley, started out 3-0. Some people were questioning, was it part of the schedule or is this team for real? They have a tough injury with Jarrett House going down against South Elgin. And the first game with Peyton Mitchell starting at quarterback didn't go so well against Waubonsie.
Well, Coach Ted Munkin, obviously it's an 11-man game. So he wasn't going to lay all the blame on Peyton. He was obviously in not a great situation coming in when Jarrett left, and he's going to get better this week.
And when you see this team going forward, I know people kind of like to count victories at the beginning of the season. They do have a couple opponents that they seem to match up with pretty well. What are your handicap and odds? Do you think Mattia Valley is going to be a playoff team this year?
They've got Neuqua. They would be challenged to win this one. They've got Bartlett after that. Bartlett would be favored. Week 8, they've got Lake Park, and though Lake Park is also struggling, so that's going to be a toss-up. And then they finish up with Elgin, which is a winnable game for the Mustangs.
So a team that's really kind of come pretty far here in these last 2 years. We've seen them do it with the run. We've seen them throw it around a little bit. And when their defense tends to stop people, that's when things start to come together for them.
Right. Well, and we'll have to see how long Jarrett House is out. He, at that game that at that game last week, the Waubonsee game, he was hobbling around pretty well. It didn't look like, initially Coach Munkin said that he may be back this week. Last I talked to him, he didn't mention anything about it, but it didn't look like he was going to be playing this week. We'll see.
And we know you cover mostly the UEC, but you're hitting all fields for us this week. DVC as well, Central and North. Naperville Central coming out of the gate a little bit up and down, week in, week out, 3-2. But Matt Randolph has really been the workhorse for that offense.
Right. Well, he is a horse. I mean, he's a nice-sized runner. He can go off tackle really nicely. The Wheaton South game, I actually picked the Red Hawks over the Tigers in that one. That didn't happen. But, in that game, he was only able to run for about 57 yards against what really is a good defense for the Tigers. They're going to want, and I think Ian Lewandowski only had about 32. So they're going to want to get those guys back raring to go. Against Glenbard North, it's going to be difficult, though.
Definitely, and you talk about defense, a team that's been pretty strong defensively in the past, and once again this year, Naperville North, Sean Drendle's squad sitting pretty well right now in the DVC off that big win against Wheaton Warrenville South and then West Chicago last weekend. They're looking pretty good on the defensive side of the ball as well.
Right. Well, unfortunately for West Chicago, it's easy to look good against the Wildcats. I don't like to say that, but that's just the way it is. Naperville North would obviously be the favorite against Glenbard East. They've got West Aurora coming up, and then they finish up tough with Naperville Central and Glenbard North. So sitting at 3-2, they're going to be they'll be challenged down the road.
And you talk about these four area teams minus Mattia, minus Bennett that are looking pretty good right now going forward. They're two big rivalry games, each of them at North Central College. That's really going to be the game that we're going to find out really who the top two teams in each of these districts are.
Right, for sure. I mean, as a guy who does cover the Waubonsee and Neuqua and Mattia, I'm especially interested in the Neuqua-Waubonsee game. I think that's going to be a knockout dragout.
Yeah, it's one of those that really maybe comes down to who has the ball last.
Right, it could. And, with good kickers on both sides, that could be a factor as well.
Definitely. And we go back down to Maple Avenue over to Bennett Academy. They're struggling out of the gate, 0-5, still looking for that first win. They've had a couple heartbreakers. But as we look down, they're hoping to make something out of this season to maybe get 3 or 4 wins here down the stretch. Sure. Nick Mankowski, the guy for them.
Right. Well, yeah, Nick, Nick is the guy for them. They looked, I was at the Joliet Catholic game, and their passing game is ahead of their run game at this point. Coach Pat New would like to get, as Coach Wells at Neuqua, Coach New would like to get more of a balance between that, a little bit more running. That said, they were pretty pleased, even though they lost 35-0 to Joliet Catholic. In the first half, they pretty much held their own against one of the top teams in the state.
Definitely. Well, Dave, we appreciate you letting us come by the newsroom, and we'll be seeing you on Friday nights.
Yes.